everyone. I'm Elena, and I'm the founder of the C-Suite Collective. This is a company I created for executive leadership coaching and wellness that supports C-suite executives, entrepreneurs, and founders. Now, more than ever, businesses are running faster and with fewer resources. Burnout, overwhelm, disconnection, and disillusionment are the new norm for teams struggling with an old paradigm. At the C-Suite Collective, we believe deeply that providing massive support for your teams through executive coaching and holistic practices will create an inclusive culture, higher levels of performance, sustainable change, and the organizational impact you desire. You can find us at the c-suitecollective.com. Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of the Collective Corner. Today I'm speaking with Annikki Hill, who is one of my favorite people in the entire world. I remember when I met her in 2016, and we share a little bit about that in this episode. And I'm so excited, honored, and proud to have her be part of the C-Suite Collective. She spent much of her career in the international financial sector, first as an attorney and then as a health insurance manager in the Cayman Islands. And in 2012, Annikki founded her coaching practice, Blue Island Oracle. We hope you enjoy the episode today, and remember that something powerful resides within you, and we're here to support you in seeing it and creating it. Oh my gosh, Annikki, I'm so excited to be with you today on the Collective Corner, our special segment of people that are part of TCC, the C-Suite Collective. And I'm just so grateful for you in general. So I thank you for being here, number one.
My pleasure.
And I think the thing I want to share right off the bat is I remember the first day I met you. We were in a training program for coaches, and you had come back to support a leader who was on maternity leave at that time. And I remember your presence in the room. And I was, at that time I was not even clear about who or where in the world I would be coaching. And I was so taken by your grace and your stillness, but your fire, your passion too at the same time. And you were the only one in the room that would speak up randomly, just with whatever you saw all the time. And it was so refreshing to have a powerful woman in the room that was not afraid. So
Thank you.
That's my memory of you.
I hear fire a lot when people describe a memory of me. So that's what's funny. I crack up about it because I don't relate to myself as fire.
Yeah.
But I hear you. Yeah. But I remember actually walking into the room, having been away for so long because I'd taken a break from training and being so impressed with that group. And I remember you and I ended up working together for a short period of time.
Yeah.
And that was a lot of fun. It really was a lot of fun. So it's really my pleasure to be here and my pleasure to see what you're creating in this space. It's a lot of fun.
Oh my goodness. Well, I adore you, but let's jump right in. So I want to hear, what are the biggest things you're talking about with your clients currently and people in your space?
I think the first thing to take note of is the fact that I work largely with teams. I'm spending a lot of time, for the last 6 months, I've spent a lot of time with senior management teams and C-suite as a group, not necessarily on an individual basis, even though I do coach several members of those teams individually. But, we're dealing with a lot at the senior level because whatever's happening throughout the organization is magnified at the senior level is what I'm starting to see, because everyone is in the impact of their team for being responsible for their entire team. You know what I mean? So the person at the top is seeing all of it, feeling all of it, carrying all of it, and they're actually almost like a magnified experience of what's happening in the team. Now, that's of course if they're connected to the team, which is a requirement for you to be doing your job effectively as a chief. But some of the biggest things I'm seeing right now are pandemic fatigue. I'm seeing challenges with the work from home and back to office transition. I'm seeing recession fears, like what are we going to do if things go sideways? And I'm also seeing things that I wasn't expecting in this last 6 months. And to be fair, I think I should just frame this up. Like, I've just jumped into this practice in the last 6 to 8 months full time. I was a part-time coach prior to this, but taking on these teams has been my focus for the last 6 months in particular. And one of the things that surprised me was that the impact that all of these changes in the world are the impact that is having on women in particular. I was very sheltered prior to this, having been a senior manager myself, where I was, supported. I never saw firsthand in my role as a senior manager, as a chief, the impact that the world has had on women and the barriers that still exist in the workplace. But going into coaching women and leaders and teams of leaders that include women has really been an eye-opening experience for me as well. And that has been exacerbated by all of the other changes with like pandemic fatigue, transition, recession fears, etc. So what you're finding is that these teams are in crises. They're in a crisis right now, and different flavors of crisis, right? So for instance, there are people on the front line, there are teams that are on the front line, and then there are teams that had the office experience of the pandemic, which is being able to set up from home and be able to not see a dip in your income. And you're actually seeing a huge impact of crisis, but the teams that are further behind are the ones that were not in integrity to start with.
Oh, say that
Right?
again
So
for the
my
world.
work. Yeah, the teams that are struggling with the crisis and the crises that we're seeing in the world right now, the ones that are struggling the most are the ones that were not in integrity to begin with.
Yeah, well, and that's so interesting because I know, so you work globally. I want to make that clear, right? You're based in Cayman,
Yeah.
so you have a lot of global clients that are not just US centric. And I think that's important, right? For the different listeners, but also, the US in particular, when I was coaching some of this during the pandemic, we saw similar trends that you're seeing now. But the thing that I would say is that I don't know if I would have framed it the ones that weren't in integrity before. It's almost like the ones that were not willing is what we saw in the US. So the people that were willing to pivot and change and be with whatever was up, even if it was out of integrity, were the ones that were very quick to experiment and see a little bit of change. I won't say much, right? A little bit of change.
Yeah.
As opposed to the integrity wins.
But it's the willingness to change there are levels of willingness, right?
Yeah.
There's a willingness to look like you're changing.
Yep.
And that is the most common form of willingness that you'll see. And you see, I mean, I've worked with companies where if you look at their Instagram or their LinkedIn profiles, you'd think, oh my goodness, what an awesome place to work.
Yeah.
But then you get into the coaching, you start to see, no, this is paying lip service to ideas like workplace wellness, etc., just to tick a box so that you can recruit better quality. So there's a level that is not real, and then you get into the real willingness to change and also to be in integrity and to pivot, and those are the places where you see the CEO is in the room. And the CFO is in the room.
Yep.
And, and the chiefs are actually being willing to talk about difficult things with each other in the presence of a coach. I mean, of course, this is me facilitating conversations that they would not necessarily have outside of the room. But the willingness to participate in those types of conversations are the ones that are speaking to an integrity. So I think we should probably step back and just say what I mean by integrity, right? There are a few ways to see integrity.
Yeah.
I know that you and I were trained in specific ways to see integrity.
Yep.
Which is the alignment of thought, speech, and action. Intention, speaking, and action, lining up. And of course, we have like a visual around that.
Yep.
But then there's also the another visual that I can give you or another way of seeing integrity is to see it as a wheel. The wagon wheel that had all of these different spokes. So if you have one spoke that's way too long, so that you can consider that to be like an example of micromanagement, for instance. Or if you see like a spoke that's too short, where, for instance, you're not managing performance properly, effectively, and you're not actually dealing with things like workplace bullying and misbehavior in the workplace and incivility in the workplace. And you'll see that wheel that has a short spoke and a long spoke is no longer round. And that's a bumpy ride, right?
Yeah.
So whenever we speak about integrity, it's very important to line up what we mean by that. To be in integrity is to have your thoughts, your speech, and your action in alignment, your intention, your speaking, and your action. That way, your organization knows exactly what to expect.
Yeah.
But if you're thinking and your speaking are not lining up. So, for instance, you're not interested in well-being. You're not interested in a focus on your human resources, but you say you are. That immediately impacts the trust that your employees and that your clients will have in you, because the dissonance is obvious. The dissonance is clear. It's just not, you're not speaking it, and people probably don't even know what they're seeing. But human beings are really intuitive, and we know when something's off about an organization, right? Like, we know when something's off about a leader or an organization. So I say all this to say that if you're in integrity and all of your thoughts, your speech, and your action are lining up, and then also your wheel is running properly. So I consider those two to be two different types of integrity. One is like functional integrity, which is the wheel. And then there's the other one, which is almost like I have never really named it, but I think if I was to call it anything, I would call it like a spiritual integrity. Like the spirit of what you're doing things in.
Yeah.
But if those things are missing, you have issues with trust. You then create issues with boundaries. Then, performance management ends up having a gap. You end up promoting people who are probably great on paper, but are terrible to your team, terrible to your employees. And you're seeing, we see in the DEIB world, paying lip service to something, but actually not willing to look at the deep issues behind it, and change the spirit of where things are coming from. And the same when it relates to the difficulties women are facing in the world. This is not just a conversation about race, but any group that is othered. And then also we're seeing burnout. Burnout is another gap in integrity, but that's a gap of integrity that's going to impact your entire team. But it may be coming from the top down.
Yeah. Well, gosh, these are all such great topics that we're serving people with in general in the C-suite arena. So I love that this is, you're like in it right now. And what has been the reaction to this word number one, integrity, but also your view of how they can start to address some of this?
Well, the reaction, I think those are really two big questions. Let me first go with the reaction. What I've had so far is I've been very fortunate with my clients being willing to take a look, which is the first step. I mean, they may disagree, but if they take a look, sometimes they'll find something of value to take back into their day-to-day management and leadership. And I'm loving seeing the impact of that on them facing down the issues within their team. So, and of course, this is being done as a group. So that's a really powerful thing to see, where everyone has a language around this. We're now checking things against this integrity definition. Are we in integrity? And this is in your Monday morning meeting. So it's a really beautiful thing to see it come to the forefront of the thinking of the C-suites that I work with. The second question, which I think, if you can remind me. Oh yeah. So my solution to this, right?
Yeah.
My
like
suggestion.
How are they reacting to
your
your suggestions? Yeah.
I think it's a journey. It's not something that is going to disappear overnight. It is something that you have to first become aware of, then come into action around. And that's actually the process I'm seeing is taking time. It takes more time with more people, right? If you're working with an individual, it's one thing, but everyone is on their own level of velocity toward integrity, right? They move at their own speed. But what I'm loving about it is that one of the things that I provide as a source of integrity is humanity. How do we focus on the humanity of every single member of your team? And I actually take a look at what does it take to motivate humanity today? And this is a conversation that I've been in for several years. Years ago, when I started to coach, I picked up a book that I fell in love with, and it's written by Danielle Pink, and it's called Drive. And he and I have never met. This is not a promotion of Danielle Pink's work, but I love that. I love that book so much. And I think what I loved about it too, and just as an aside, this is a little bit of a segue, is that he had the insight to separate and put lawyers in a completely different chapter.
Oh, now I'm fascinated.
As a recovering attorney myself. Yeah. But as a recovering lawyer myself, I find that fascinating, and I was like, okay, he really gets it. But Danielle Pink's work speaks to what it takes to motivate an individual. In like the old ideas around motivation are beginning to fade. They were a product of the Industrial Revolution, and the labor movement, and they involved carrots and sticks. The carrot stick is a thing of the past now. That only applies to a small subset of the workforce today, which is the subset that is doing only manual labor that does not involve any form of cognitive engagement. If there's any form of cognitive engagement, Daniel Pink speaks to three different elements of motivation, which I fell in love with this, right? And I've been using this in my coaching. I used it in my own team when I was in my own leadership position, and I also feel like it was an answer. And of course, I'm a millennial, right? So I'm an early millennial. So I also felt like this was the answer to the workforce's mystification when it came to how do we deal with millennials. He came up with this three-pillared approach to, and this was of course based on scientific research that he did not necessarily participate in, but he kind of put it all together. And that you need purpose, mastery, and autonomy. Those are the three parts of motivation. So I always give this example of a client I worked with many, many years ago, not as a coach, but in my previous work. It was a multinational organization, and I was working in particular with their offices throughout the Caribbean, and I had to travel to several of these offices, not all of them, several of these offices throughout the Caribbean. And I traveled with one of their senior HR executives and had one of the global executives. I had some really good conversations about how they had dealt with the last recession. This would have been about 10 years ago. And the previous recession was a time when this particular organization, it was a courier organization. Okay, so you're dealing with folks who are not necessarily high-level cognitive ability or high-level cognitive engagement in their work. This is not speaking to their talent necessarily, but within their work, it wasn't required to deliver packages throughout the Caribbean. And they had concerns about the recession as they saw it coming in and expected to take a hit because, courier services may be the one place that organizations decide to cut back on. As it turns out, they had this conversation with every level of their team, from their security guards to their delivery drivers to their senior executives throughout the Caribbean. And during the recession, they grew by I can't remember exactly what percentage it was, but it was completely unexpected growth. Because what they came up with was that they would engage every single member of their team and empower them to bring in business. Every single member of their team was empowered to be part of business development.
Wow.
Every member of their team was also incentivized with commission.
Yeah.
And they were given training as to how to represent the company appropriately. And that company did extremely well. And what I learned from that is that the key to recession survival, which is a very big topic that's showing up right now in the workforce, particularly with the labor shortages and the transitions of the way that we work and the way that we do business, is team. The answer is team.
Yeah.
The answer is engaging your team and trusting your team, being vulnerable with your team, and coming into integrity with your team.
And it's not magic. That's the thing. This isn't it's not a new concept that's just being talked about today in 2022. It has always been the answer. And the people that have gotten far away from it, I think, are exactly what you said. The people that have not been in integrity and are struggling.
Yeah.
What's your hope for the C-Suite Collective and through the lens of everything you just shared? Because, you joined this platform together, and we are a group of coaches that are a team in the world. So I'm already, my wheels are spinning over here listening to you about our team.
Yeah.
But what do you hope to see?
And there are a few things. Internally, I would love to see us really knit together as an unstoppable team, and being an example of what we preach. And, we're young, we're getting there.
Yeah.
We're making our way in that direction, and that's really exciting. And on the external front, I would love for us to be able to have these types of conversations and wider and wider, a wider expansion of our reach. I would love to be able to see people in the world as a result of the work that we do relate to their work as an adventure, as a place where they can have fun, as a place where, and this, you can make the most difficult and most dull and most boring work an adventure if you engage the humanity of what you're doing. And I have it that there's a lot of space to play right now in this place of shifting sands. And, we're in a state of flux throughout the world at the moment. It's a huge opportunity to create the intention and then support the speech and the action to line up. It's a huge opportunity to look at the spokes in the wheel and say, what are we overemphasizing just because it's what we've always done? And what, is this still important? Like it's timekeeping. I remember every time in my leadership, I had a right-hand man who was a very good manager and an excellent manager, incredibly technically proficient. And he struggled with his team, like taking 15 extra minutes on their lunch breaks. And I remember us learning, like really learning from each other, because I'm not necessarily a gifted manager. I'm a leader. Like I was a born leader.
Yeah.
And we would have these conversations. We learned a lot from each other. So I learned my management skills often from him because we worked together for almost 10 years. And he learned a lot around leadership from me. And I feel as though one of the things that we're starting to grow in, and I think the TCC has the opportunity to share, is actually getting clear on what actually matters. Is that 15-minute extra on your lunch break something that matters down on the ground?
Right.
And maybe it does, and maybe it doesn't. But really getting clear on where we've overemphasized something that is not really that important, and getting clear on what really matters in the work that we do today.
That's really brilliant. When I first was looking at how would we go in and talk to companies about this, one of the things that I most often would hear is, well, we have all these benefits for people. We have set up resources to mental health, and we have a coaching firm that we work with. And my first question, to your point, was always, but what about the individual human? You've created a blanket statement for your company, and nobody's using the resources, frankly, because either they don't know they exist or it's too complicated or cumbersome to get to them. And what if you actually saw the human in front of you, and to that one person that the extra lunch break would make a huge difference for? And I think for leaders, that's daunting, because the C-suites are often, the thing I hear is, I don't have time or energy to do that for every single human that works for me. So what do you have for them, people that say that?
I have it that's why it starts at the top. And we haven't really talked about what I did before this, but I was the head of a health insurance company. And we were responsible for designing and delivering workplace wellness programs. And you'd go in and do a full health check in the organization, set up in the conference room, have nurses, dietitians, and I think there was like a fitness expert that would tell you, what you need to do to get your life in order, your health in order, get your numbers down, get your cholesterol where it needs to be, etc.
Yeah.
And if the CEO did not come down, if the senior partner did not come down, it was always a telling correlation between that and the uptake of the rest of the team. Right. And wellness programs are wonderful things, and they're interesting, and they can be well designed. But participation is something that is created by culture. I remember there was a comment that was made in some training that we recently did with the Soul Focus group, which is that, culture eats policy for breakfast.
Yeah. And
this is exactly what's showing up. So you can deliver these things into the workplace and tick the box. But once again, that is just face value. That is just a performance level of something that you can put on a brochure. When you actually lift the hood, nothing is actually changing as a result. In that world of well-being and wellness and humanizing your team, one of the things that I've seen that works is when you actually engage your senior management team first. So what I do with organizations is that I'll actually sit with them and do a workshop with them first, the C-suite. Then I will go and coach your managers that you're having trouble with, or your team that you want to form better, or whatever that is. Let's have a conversation about this though, so that you set the tone, so that you learn the language, so that when I move myself out of the space, when I'm no longer coaching your team, you have a reference point, you have a vocabulary around what you need to be able to continue the momentum that your team is having. So the short answer to the question that I've just given a very long-winded answer to is to really make sure that the top is engaged.
Yeah.
The top is where you start. You start with your leaders.
Well, there you go. I think that's a great place to end because that's what we believe.
Yeah.
That's why we're called the C-Suite Collective, is start at the top and the work will then trickle down from there. So
Yeah.
anything else you want to share with the world before we say goodbye?
I just want to thank you really for having the vision for this. Like, you and I started talking about this, 4 years ago, 5 years ago?
long time ago.
A long time ago. And it was a dream of yours. And I'm super proud of what you've created and very, very honored to be part of it. So thank you for being that for us and allowing us to be that for the world.
Oh, thank you. It's my greatest honor to work with people like you. And I'm just thinking of all the things you shared, the theme of fun and connection and humanity. And that's the thing that lights me up. So surrounding ourselves with those people in the collective, I think we're practicing what we preach, and there's always room to grow, as with every company we work with. But it brings me hope that we're in the lane, at least. We're in the lane getting on the racetrack.
Yeah. And growing is practicing what you preach.
Yeah, exactly.
You know.
Thank you so much. I love you very much, and I'm so excited to have you.
My pleasure.
If this conversation sparked something for you, let it move through your week. Take it with you. Take on one small action to move the ball forward. And if you want to join our community of leaders who are daring to lead with courage and heart, you can find that at www.elenaarmijo.com or www.thec-suitecollective.com. I reserve a small number of complimentary 20-minute sessions for leaders who want clarity on what they need and insight into what is getting in the way. The practical next steps that create real movement and results in your leadership journey. So you can schedule a call through the link below. It's in the description. Like, subscribe. Thank you for listening, for showing up, and for doing the work of being human together.